Welcome to Means of Grace, a podcast produced by the Western North Carolina Conference of the United Methodist Church.
When the Pew Research Center asked Americans what provided meaning in their lives, 47% said the outdoors. This was well above religious faith at 36%. So it makes sense that as churches in the Western North Carolina Conference look to connect with people in their communities, that the outdoors would be a perfect place to start. Several congregations in our conference have started outdoor-oriented fresh expressions, and the epicenter of this has been in the Smoky Mountain District. The westernmost district of the conference lives up to its name. It's a beautiful mountainous region with Methodist churches sprinkled throughout small towns and rural areas. I've been curious to see how these churches are finding ways to bridge the gap between the church and the outdoors. So my wife, my 1-year-old daughter, and I packed our minivan for a weekend-long road trip through the Smoky Mountain District to visit 3 of our outdoor fresh expressions, seeking to be the church in the outdoors. Our first stop was the Smoky Mountain Hiking Community, a fresh expression of First United Methodist Church, Waynesville, led by Sherry and Alan Short. We met up with the group at the trailhead of Albright Grove in the Smokies, near Cosby, Tennessee. Sherry opened the hike with a devotion.
Here's what I have to start us off today. This comes from Psalm 96. Let the heavens be glad and let the earth rejoice. Let the sea roar and all that fills it. Let the field exult and everything in it. Then shall the trees of the forest sing for joy before the Lord, for he is coming. I loved finding something that talked about trees. Obviously, that's going to be kind of the theme for our hike. And the psalm reminds us that praising God is not just limited to human creatures. Praising God is seen in all of the picture of earth and heaven, because all creatures show praise and joy in their own way. So today we're going to be hiking in some virgin forest, and we're going to see trees that could be over 400 years old. I had to imagine that these are trees that have had to survive drought. They've been exposed to extreme cold, possibly blizzard. They've had to fight disease, and they've had to deal with human blight. And yet they continue to praise their Creator God by their poise and their strength and their beauty. So as we hike today, I want you to make sure that you look around at all that is on the trail. Look at all the creation that is around you and take in its unique beauty and its complexity and its ability to adapt to its surrounding. And then look up at the trees when we get there and see how far high they stretch into the heavens and how they are even beyond our sight because they go up so high. And look at how they move. Listen to the sounds they make, because trees really can talk to you. See how everything around you, all of creation, is showing its own praise and its own joy just by being. And then think, how will you find a place of praise and joy from what this place is giving you? Amen? Amen.
Sherry is a retired deacon, but like most recently retired Methodist clergy I know, she's far from finished serving the church. Her husband Alan is a naturalist. He introduces the group to the environment they are about to experience.
Just to add to that a little bit, it's so great to see everybody. I'm so excited to be here. I'm excited to share this because this is a special hike. Hope you feel that way about it. No place is the cycle of life better illustrated than in the forest. And this hike in particular, I want you to think about the cycle of life. This includes everything from the very young to the very old to the dead and dying. And you're going to see all that today. So I want you to put that on as your filter as you experience the hike with all your senses, and then ask yourself, what does this teach me about my own life? Because there's lessons to be learned. So the wisdom of the forest. All right, everybody ready?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Bathing in the forest.
Sherry's gonna sweep.
We took off for our 7-mile hike into the depth of the forest. As we walked, Sherry and I chatted as best as we could between breaths.
So how did it get started? How did hiking church get started?
Well, hiking church got started with a conversation between my husband, Alan, because he's a naturalist, and me, and actually Mitzi Johnson, after an Easter service at Lake Junaluska, where we were sitting outside, and it was really beautiful, and there was an eagle that flew down where this church service was going on for Easter, and it was a sunrise service, so the water was really smooth and pretty. And after the service, we talked and said, we should start a hiking church because you can connect to God in this way that's unique when you're out having church in the woods and in nature.
That's awesome.
You can hear the other hikers in the group talking to each other about the natural world around them, experiences they've had with the church, and sharing what's happening in their lives. Wilson Booth is a young man who lives and works in Waynesville. He told me how this form of church can speak to his generation.
The demographic or the age group really that we have doing the hikes. It's something I thought that would really speak to people in their 20s and 30s looking for spirituality, but trying to find it elsewhere. And this does offer that in such a way where it's open and exciting, especially in Western North Carolina. But at the same time, it's turned out to be something a lot more connecting in between generations than just one.
He's right. Booth is in his 20s. The group today also has a young teenager and his parents, and it has several folks who are retired. I caught up with Alan at the front of the pack to ask him how his passion for the outdoors formed this fresh expression.
I just had this sense that, what I was called to do was to share the wonders of creation and of nature with people, because everybody goes outside, they spend time. Look at the size of that tree. Is that amazing? Yeah. They spend time, and people invariably will say, it was so wonderful, it was so relaxing and refreshing, but they don't really understand necessarily. Many don't understand why it is that they feel that way. And my personal belief is that, this is God's revelation of God's self to us. That's what nature is. And so, if I can help people appreciate that in a new way or a deeper way, if they already do appreciate it, then, it changes you. It changes behaviors. It helps people realize that we're all part of an earth, if not a universe community, and that, we need to respect the planet because what happens to the planet ultimately happens to us. And I think it really is it feels like a calling to me. And that's why I do it.
Amazing.
And that's what the Fresh Expression is really about.
Alan's love for God and love for nature was truly contagious. As we were talking, something would stop him in his tracks. He'd bring others in the group around to share in his delight. A huge downed tree caught his attention.
Count those rings.
Yeah, really. Stand here all day, count rings. They're really tight in the middle. So, you know, I don't know. That's probably, especially if you're kind of pushing on it a little bit, it's probably the 16th century right there. There's your Fraser magnolias.
That other one, I had never seen the cones, the red cones. It was gorgeous.
Yeah.
I've never seen one that tall.
Oh, look at that.
After 7 miles of breathtaking beauty and holy conversations, we returned to the parking area to hydrate and part ways. In 2 weeks, they'll meet again to reflect on God and God's creation. The next stop on our trip took us down a windy road that follows the Nantahala River in Bryson City. As you meander down the gorge, mountains surround you on both sides until you reach the Nantahala Outdoor Center. The Nantahala Outdoor Center is a remarkable place, a village fully dedicated to paddlers, a term that includes kayakers, rafters, and canoers. Here you can hire a guide, buy some gear, eat a gourmet lunch, or just jump in and paddle. It is here Wayne Dickert, or Wayner as he is known by the paddling community, leads a fresh expression called River of Life. Bishop Ken Carter refers to it as one of the first fresh expressions he experienced in the U.S. The fresh expression is anchored to Bryson City United Methodist, where Wayner is also the pastor. River of Life is much farther along in the life cycle of a fresh expression than most in our conference. It has matured into a church that worships weekly. As chairs are pulled together in the outdoor pub area overlooking the river, the group gathers in song. Wayner's message fits perfectly with the surroundings, as well as the community he's speaking to, drawing from his experience as a guide and paddling instructor.
And as an instructor, one of the things that we tend to focus on is we have this acronym called PREP. Some of you are familiar with this acronym. And this acronym comes from 4 words, right? So it's posture, rotation, eyesight, and positive attitude. That's what PREP is. That's kind of the foundation for kayaking, as it turns out, maybe even for a living. So if you've got a positive mental attitude, it helps you stay upright. If you've got this positive mental attitude, it sort of incorporates all the other things into that. Jesus knew that. Right? He wasn't even a kayaker that I know of. He was pretty cool, so you never know. Hear these words from Luke 12, starting at verse 32. Don't be afraid, little flock, because your Father delights in giving you the kingdom. Sell your possessions and give to those in need. Make yourselves wallets that don't wear out, a treasure in heaven that never runs out. No thief comes near there, and no moth destroys it. Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also.
Yes, that's my 1-year-old, leaving her mark on all of my audio. After the message, Wayner introduces the response.
And so today, I want to give you a gift. Look under your seats, non-gift. It was there. I had to go. But your gift today Your gift today is the gift of quiet. Your gift today is this focused time with God. For those of us that have done this in a time or two, we know what's next. We know we get to go sit on a rock by the river and be in quiet meditation and prayer for 5 minutes. And it's something that you look forward to. It's special. And it is again.
After 5 minutes of quiet reflection by the river, a church leader collects everyone back for the benediction.
So as we go from this place, may we go with a non-anxious presence so that others might see God's grace in us and we might experience God's peace. Go in that peace today. Amen. Amen. Thanks for coming.
After the service, I sat down with 2 of Wayner's lay leaders.
Hi, I'm Terry Cotton.
And my name's Dr. Patricia Graham, but folks around here just call me Patty.
It started 13 years ago. Wayner worked here, Pastor Wayner Dicker, worked here at NOC as a kayak instructor and in marketing and as an ambassador because he was an Olympic kayaker. And he just started gathering people together, some of the raft guides and stuff for Sunday morning little get-together lake worship. And it's just grown to where today we had 34 people. You know, so we've had as much as 90 people. 3 years ago, we had 90 people for service. That was just awesome. But you never know. It may be, 5 people. It may be 90. We never know.
I asked them what their favorite part of the River of Life was.
I think my favorite part is when we actually go to the river and we meditate upon God's presence in our lives and just within nature itself. And all too often we don't get that quiet time in today's society, so we need that time just to pause and reflect.
Yeah, the meditation time is special. It really is. It's something unique to this, that, to sit beside the river, the river of life. And the water is such a strong thing in most people's lives around here. It's, recreation, it's recreation, it's enjoyment, it's life.
I'm often asked how Fresh Expressions take up an offering. I always refer to the River of Life. Instead of asking folks who attend to give to a salary or a church building, all giving goes to drilling wells in Haiti. It's a simple way to encourage generosity while not turning off those who mistrust the church.
So we started focusing on Haiti and wells in Haiti. And, like Wayner said, our first time, we came up with let's do a well in a weekend, during the Guest Appreciation Festival. Have a little booth and sell used gear and see if we can get enough money to raise a well. And we did. We sold cupcakes. It was a blast, but we did it. And, who would have thought that we would have been able to raise enough for a well? And the last 2 years, we've raised 5 wells each weekend. So that's just, wow, only God can do that,
Next, I asked Terry and Patty how people hear about the River of Life.
Part of it is done face-to-face. We will do a formal invitation, invite people here. Sometimes we'll see someone walking by and say, hey, come on up here and join us. We're celebrating God today. Sometimes through music, which my husband and I will play here once a month at the river. They will hear the music and come up just out of curiosity. And so even the music will bring them up on here on the deck just to find out what's going on.
Yeah, a lot of the people are boaters, that normally boat with Wayner or no Wayner, or are raft guides here, or know them from another church. But a lot of times it's just people that have heard about it, through the website, through, the raft guides talking or something, and they just show up, and that's awesome.
After the service, we rode with Wayner to our next stop and had a chance to ask him some questions about how the River of Life got started. My 1-year-old had a few things to offer as well.
The River of Life came to be really out of a meeting with me and
the president then of the outdoor center, where we were sitting down, and I just felt the Spirit nudging me to kind of throw out this idea of having some kind of a little riverside service, and to reach out to paddlers and raft guides and folks in the area that don't really have much of an opportunity to go to a service, or who maybe aren't inclined to go to a structured, certainly an institutional service. In fact, many people that come to the river are there to get away from any kind of institutionalized religion. And so we try to be very aware of that when we talk to people and having conversations and building relationships and stuff. And so it's one of those places that, you kind of see, wow, this would be a great place to have a little riverside service, but wow, that'll never happen, And just as soon as you say that, right, that's when God starts laughing. And sure enough, I said, he says, hey, can I do anything for you? And I says, well, what if we started a riverside service? And it was a rhetorical question, right? You know the answer. The answer is no. And he says, sure. What can I do to help you out?
13 years later, the River of Life is still living into this vision of being the church with paddlers who otherwise wouldn't be connected. Our last stop on the journey brought us to Robbinsville United Methodist, the only United Methodist church in Graham County. With 8,000 residents, it's the third least populated county in North Carolina. Robbinsville UMC is a smaller rural congregation that looks like many of our smaller congregations in the conference. 5 years ago, the pastor and 3 church members had an idea.
I showed you one that we just got. Yeah. This one really caught me off guard. The guy from Vermont that made it all the way and sent us a nice note thanking us.
Pastor Eric Reese showed me a picture and a note they had received from a hiker who had just completed the Appalachian Trail, a 2,200-mile hike from Georgia to Maine. The trail crosses the road in Robbinsville.
We live right where the trail is, and at Stokoa Gap, there are hikers that are there all the time, from the end of March until into November. And my dad was sick, and he lived in Cullowhee, and we were going across the gap all the time. And we'd pick up hikers, bring them into town, and then my husband would schedule with them at 9 o'clock to take them back up. Well, I talked to Jeff, which was the pastor here, Jeff Ramsland, before Eric, and he was very interested in starting a hiker's ministry.
That was Marcia. She reminds me of my mom, a kind woman who's going to help someone if they need it. And that's largely what their outreach does. Every week, another volunteer, Mary Ann, brings gallon Ziploc bags full of snacks to the trail and leaves them on the picnic table for hikers to take, something hikers call trail magic.
She's the deliverer. She takes those up every Sunday in a pack. In a bag. Yeah. We have like a Ziploc bag that we put like just breakfast bars and crackers and chips and things like that inside the granola bars. And all of that's donated by our congregation, but that goes up every week.
And where do you put it?
There's the picnic tables up there at Stokoa Gap.
Right there on the trail.
Lay it up there on that.
That's just a stopping place there.
Yeah, there's a couple of tables there.
There's picnic tables, place for them to put their trash.
In these bags, they also include a card that says Robbinsville United Methodist is praying for your journey, and if you need anything, call this number. Hikers take them up on their offer, asking for rides to various places.
A lot of folks, they end up, even though Robbinsville's 7-8 miles from the gap, they still end up coming in here to resupply. And I've taken folks to Ingalls and Walgreens and McDonald's, and because they get here and they need stuff, and they're in the middle. I don't want to say middle of nowhere, but they're isolated.
Some of the ones that I've helped early on, there was a couple that I took into town that's in like the beginning of March or the beginning of April. they're not prepared for the weather because it can be like just fine here, and over 5,000 feet, it can be ice and, just really, really treacherous. So I had a couple, they were from up north somewhere. They had shorts, and I picked them up, and they had gotten into an ice storm. They were freezing.
Every time that I've gone to pick up somebody, they really needed help. They couldn't make the connections any other way. But the Fisher family, this was early June. It's long before Mama got sick. And they were flypaper. I couldn't get rid of them.
June is also a motherly type. You can tell she has fun with the ministry, and she sees the depth of the work that they are doing.
The reason I got involved, maybe more than I should have, Jeff found, our previous pastor, found out that a lot of these people, maybe not everybody, but they were struggling with some spiritual issues, that they were getting over the death of a friend or a family member, and usually some kind of long-term illness and stuff. And I've been there. My sister died of cancer after 4.5 years. And so when I found out there was a spiritual element in it, then I was more interested. It wasn't just feeding hungry hikers. So.
While the bags and rides are important, they've found that the relationships are even more important.
Like Mary Ann was saying, we do a lot of listening.
Yeah.
We do a lot of listening to folks that come up and tell us about themselves and what they're going through and why they're walking the trail and what their hopes are.
Well, and I think if we show them kindness, no matter where they are, they see that.
To help somebody, former addicts and stuff, and to help them get really grounded after they're over that. And man, that's a privilege that we're given.
They shared with me a story of some hikers they had helped recently.
3 guys came off the trail and they needed some help. And so Bob brought them here. And so that Sunday morning, they wanted to sing for the church. And one of them it wasn't a guitar. It was more like a Eastern European guitar. They kind of sang Amazing Grace, and then they sang one other. What was it?
I Can Only Imagine.
I Can Only Imagine. And that really impressed the folks.
And I was really impressed when the 3 guys came, how the church accepted them. And we didn't know anything about their backgrounds or anything, but the church really did. It didn't bother them how they were dressed, and they weren't dressed badly, especially for hikers. But the church really accepted them and was very friendly to them. And I was just like, wow, I've been in a lot of churches that would not have happened. Cynical me, but I was just really impressed with that. They claim them, these are our guys, not just strangers. So
It's part of our family.
As I sat with these 3 women and their pastor, I thought about how many churches in our conference could do something like this. It doesn't take a seminary degree or a dynamic young pastor to reach out into your community. All it takes is a heart full of love for God and love for your neighbor. Wayner gave some great advice to churches who might start an outdoor fresh expression.
For folks that, have an inkling about sharing any kind of passion with others in ministry, which often will result in a fresh expression. I remember my first seminary class, we were supposed to sit down and look at our life experiences and our own gifts and talents and just all this that's culminating in what we might be able to use in ministry. Of course, I was a boater and, worked on the river and different things like that. And I remember going up to the teacher and I went, man, I'm not supposed to be here. What's God going to do with this? And then it wasn't long after that the River of Life was born, and I didn't couldn't even envision that, but God could. And so God took those passions and those things that I had and formed that into a ministry, and it's just been such a blessing to me to kind of see all that take shape and to see others be blessed by it. It's just a phenomenal thing. So to other leaders that are out there, I would say look at your passions and look at other ways that you enjoy spending time with people and incorporate Jesus into that. I mean, it's kind of what we're called to do anyway, right? That's called living as Christians.
Our neighbors are finding meaning in nature. As the people of God, we can come alongside them with hearts full of love and introduce them to the one who created it all.
Hello, this is Andy Go, producer of the Means of Grace podcast. Thanks for tuning in. If you're seeking a way to authentically connect with your congregation in a way that's easy and convenient, consider attending my 2-day podcasting seminar held at WNCC's offices in Huntersville, North Carolina. We'll learn about how you can start your own podcast published on the same platform you're listening to now, even if you don't know where to start. The first session is November 19th through the 20th, but if you can't make that one, don't worry. The second session is January 21st through the 22nd, and we'll cover all the same information. To learn more and to register, visit us online at wnccumc.org. That's wnccumc.org. Thanks. Thank you for listening to Means of Grace, a podcast produced by the Western North Carolina Conference of the United Methodist Church. We hope you've enjoyed listening to these podcasts and use them as a way to stay connected to our community. Remember to subscribe to Means of Grace for free on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Please leave us an honest rating and a review. It helps others find this podcast. Follow the WNCC on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at WNCCUMC. That's WNCCUMC. Have questions, comments, or an idea for the show? We want to hear from you. Email us at info@umcwncc.org or reach out through social media. Means of Grace is produced by the Western North Carolina Conference of the United Methodist Church and Gojo Studios.